We didn't want to go up in the factory this morning, but the management forced us to go up and said there was no problem with the building. Just after that, I sat on my table to work, and the building just collapsed. I couldn't even leave. I was trapped at my table.
I started my work at 8 this morning. At about 9:30, I suddenly heard a strange sound, and I saw the building was collapsing. I then ran through a stairwell and jumped down. I lost consciousness, but I was rescued by others.
Inside at about 9:10 a.m., the building collapsed, and we were trapped inside since then, and up to now. It is 10:18 p.m. 11 hours we were trapped. We did not want to enter the building, but the owners pushed us to get in and work.
Broke out today in the Bangladeshi capital of Dhaka. Angry workers have blocked key highways today, marched on several factories, and rallied outside the headquarters of Bangladesh's main manufacturers group in Dhaka. The disaster comes exactly 5 months after a massive fire killed at least 112 garment workers at Bangladesh's Tazreen factory, which made clothing sold by Wal-Mart, among other companies. We're joined now by two guests. Kalpona Akhtar is with us. She's executive director of the Bangladesh Center for Worker Solidarity, started work in garment factories when she was 12 years old. She is usually in Bangladesh, but currently in the United States, to call on retailers like Walmart, The Gap, and Disney to take the lead in improving working conditions in Bangladesh. And Charlie Kernaghan is with us, director of the Institute for Global Labor and Human Rights, which has an office in nearby Dhaka. His group identified Children's Place and Cato as among the clients of the collapsed factory. We welcome you both to Democracy Now! Let's start with Kalpona. I mean, the workers had refused to go to work. Then they were told if they didn't show up the next day that they would lose their jobs.
Yes, that workers has been told. On Tuesday, when workers saw the crack in the building, they denied to work, so they left the factory in the afternoon. But in the Wednesday morning, they were forced to go inside the factory, and someone with the hand mic said, one crack doesn't matter, the factory will be, and there will be nothing happen, and they were forced to keep working. And after this announcement, within 30 minutes, the building collapsed, and as you know, it is more than 200 died, and we are just waiting to count more bodies. We don't know that when it will stop, what number it will stop, because many of them are in trap.
And Kalpona Akhtar, some of the press reports say that there was a bank in the first floor of the building, as well as some other commercial establishments, that after the crack was discovered Tuesday did close down. But meanwhile, the factories above the first floor stayed open. Is that accurate?
Yes, it was accurate. Like the bank, they removed their staff, so there wasn't any staff from the bank. And in other stories, there was a shops; those was closed. But the workers themselves, they were forced to go. And I had a chance to see a video of the building owner who was saying, "Oh, it doesn't matter. There is a crack only." And engineers, they came and they said workers can work. We just lie. We just lie. This building was totally damaged, and it wasn't ready to work. I mean, ready to have a factory even.
And how large was this crack that so many people noticed it?
It was large. The crack was like from 5th floor to, or above to the downstairs. So it was a big crack.
Charlie Kernaghan, as you learn more about what has taken place in Dhaka, your organization has been working on clothing, U.S. clothing manufacturers in Dhaka now for years. Explain what you understand at this point. Again, the casualty figures over 200, the numbers rising, of dead, and 1,000 people injured.
Yeah, there's been confirmed 210 deaths. There's 700 or 800 workers still trapped inside the factory. It's 100% certain that the death toll is going to rise very rapidly. The workers were hearing people screaming and yelling in the morning. That lasted to about noon. Everything has gone quiet now. And the army and the government is saying they're going to need 5 or even 6 days to really evacuate everyone. So this is a huge tragedy that should never, ever have happened.
Charlie, could you put this this tragedy in context in terms of the role that Bangladesh especially has been playing in the world production, industrial production system over recent decades?
Well, Bangladesh now is the second largest garment exporter in the world, right after China. And as a matter of fact, the Chinese garment factories are moving to Bangladesh because of the low wages, 14 cents an hour up to about 24 cents an hour. The workers are hardworking. They work 14 hours a day. They'll work often 7 days a week. Bangladesh is sacrificing all of these young women who are just being brutalized, starvation wages. There's no right to organize in Bangladesh. There are no unions with collective contracts. Every time the workers try, like Kalpona mentioned, every time the workers try to organize, they're beaten. They bring in gang members. They threaten them. Something has to change. And the labels, you know, like a Wal-Mart, you know, maybe they'll pay 9 cents for a garment. I mean, that's all they care about. So this thing is completely out of control, and unfortunately, there's so much corruption that this is a sinkhole.
The companies that you understand so far have been working in this particular factory where the building collapsed.
Well, once the building collapsed, it was impossible for workers to try to go through and find the labels. But for certain, Primark from the UK, Joe Fresh from Canada. There was definitely Children's Place. They said maybe that was 2 months ago that they were in that factory. Cato, which has 1,300 stores across the United States, they're involved. More and more is coming in. Wal-Mart is even saying that maybe they might have had their clothing being sewn in Ethertex, which was one of the factories in this building collapse. And it was absolutely, just as Kalpona said, and the others, is the workers were told that if they didn't go in on Wednesday to work, that they would not be paid for the month, because the owner said, we won't have the money to pay for the whole month, and therefore, if you don't go to work, you will not receive any pay for a full month. Nobody in Bangladesh, no worker in Bangladesh could ever go for a full month without wages. They go from hand to mouth. So the workers were literally put in a trap.
Well, three of the companies that Democracy Now! Contacted about the building collapse were wary of saying they actually had products being made in the garment factories housed there. In one statement, Wal-Mart said, quote, "We are investigating across our global supply chain to see if a factory in this building was currently producing for Walmart." Another company, Children's Place, told us, quote, "While one of the garment factories located in the building complex has produced apparel for the Children's Place, none of our product was in production at the time of this accident." And Dress Barn said it had, quote, "not purchased any clothing from the facility since 2010. Your response, Charlie?
Well, in the chaos and not having access to the factory, which has completely collapsed, like I said, we do know that a label in the UK, Primark, was in that factory. We do know that Cato, a U.S. company with 1,300 stores across the United States, they definitely were there. There are Canadian companies were there, Joe Fresh label. It's going to take a little time to get this information out. Like you said, Wal-Mart may very well have been producing in Ethertex, which was one of the factories that collapsed. But I think it's going to take some time. These 700-800 workers are still trapped. And you know, the death toll is definitely going to rise. This is going to be like so tragic for the people of Bangladesh.
I wanted to ask Kalpona about another issue. It's been 5 months since the horrific Tazreen fire that occurred, but there have been about 30 to 40 other accidents and fires in Bangladesh, in factories, just since that tragedy 5 months ago. What is the government doing to be able to assure basic safety for these factory workers?
After the Tazreen factory fire, there was a lot of promise or commitment has given by the government, but none of them has been accomplished. And just 3 weeks back or 4 weeks back, one Bangladeshi fire action plan has been signed, tripartite signed by the government. But you know, the time and the component it is overambitious. So literally, there is no development has been done or after the Tazreen fire, which can prevent this death. And in addition to the retailers, what Charlie was saying, I just wanted to mention there was another retailer from Italy. It's called Beneto, and they have a retail stores in here. And these the logos or the labels we found, my colleagues has found in the factory under the label. These retailers cannot just wash their hand and say we didn't do production there. They have responsibility. They cannot just go away from this responsibility and say that we didn't sew or we didn't produce my clothes in this factory.
Let me ask you about a comment of Matthew Iglesias, the business and economics correspondent for Slate.com. He wrote a piece Wednesday called "Different Places Have Different Safety Rules, and That's Okay." He wrote, quote, "Safety rules that are appropriate for the United States would be unnecessarily immiserating in much poorer Bangladesh. Rules that are appropriate in Bangladesh would be far too flimsy for the richer and more risk-averse United States. Split the difference and you'll get rules that are appropriate for nobody. The current system of letting different countries have different rules is working fine. American jobs have gotten much safer over the past 20 years, and Bangladesh has gotten a lot richer," unquote. Your response, each of you, before we go to break.
Okay, my response is in Bangladesh, we already have some rules and regulation for safety, which is not comply because these factory owners are so strong. 10% of our legislator of them are the factory owners. So literally these laws doesn't work, which is the reason that we are calling all these retailers to sign the legally binding for the Bangladeshi garment factories to sign the fire and building safety code agreement, which already been signed by PVH, like Tommy Hilfiger and Calvin Klein, and also Chibo from Italy. I know there is differences in terms of the rules and regulation between US and in Bangladesh, which is okay, but you know, whatever rules and regulation we have, that has to be complied.
Charlie Kernaghan.
Well, they have to deal with the enormous amount of corruption across Bangladesh, including the government, but especially the garment factories. This is a deadly situation. The workers are going to have the right to organize a union. They're going to have a voice. They're going to have to be able to bargain collectively. Right now, I would say the situation is completely out of control, and there are no rights that the workers are receiving. And this is just a spiral to the bottom, and it's led by the big retailers like the Wal-Marts that just all they want is to suck the blood out of these workers and pay them the lowest amount possible. Something has to change, and I think the American people, as we're one of the largest recipients of these garments, we have to stand up and say enough is enough. These are young women. These are all young women, actually, in this factory, 18, 19 years old, that have been killed and that are trapped. This has to stop.